Hello everyone, and welcome to Galaxy 89 Cars. Today, thanks to Porsche GB, I'm bringing you an in-depth exterior and interior tour and exhaust video of this 2019 Porsche 992 911 Carrera 4S. Porsche GB and Porsche Center Reading's contact details for all the latest models can be found in the description below. The 911 began its production life in 1965 as a replacement for the now equally iconic 356. Since that first model, the 911 has been reborn under 7 different model designations, with the 992 being its 8th generation. However, with further .2 updates, this takes the total amount of iterations to at least 10, with this new 992 interpretation being number 11. The 911 is now formed from more lightweight aluminium than ever before, and presented here in racing yellow. It also comes with significant front and rear aerodynamic upgrades over the 991, and I will focus on these improvements individually as we progress throughout the video. The 992 comes in at 4,519mm long, 28mm longer, 1,852mm wide, same as the outgoing 991, 1,300mm high, 3mm lower, and weighs 1565kg in this 4S variant. Before we can view the engine bay, we first need to raise the rear button here to release the engine bay cover. The small cover can then be raised up and self-supported on 2 struts. As always, the engine is quite low down to ensure a low centre of gravity, which unfortunately means we can't see much. The engine's fixation point has been moved forward to transmit vibrations to the rear dampers, but the engine itself is in the same position. This 992 is powered by a rear-mounted 3-litre twin-scroll turbocharged flat 6 that produces 444 brake horsepower and 530 Nm of torque. This output produces a 0 to 62 mph or 100 km/h time of 3.4 seconds, with a top speed of 190 mph. Once finished with, the cover can be easily pushed back down and fixed into place. This 992 is sitting on the optional 20-inch front and 21-inch rear RS Spider design wheels, one of 4 options. Braking comes from the optional Porsche carbon ceramic brakes. 350mm front and rear drilled and ventilated aluminium discs come as standard, an increase of 20mm at the rear over the 991. Stability comes from front McPherson struts with anti-roll bars and a multi-link setup with anti-roll bars at the rear, and of course this car's 4-wheel drive system. This 992 also comes with the optional rear-wheel steering and active suspension management, with adaptive dampers that can lower the car by up to 10mm for improved stability. Now we've finished the model overview, we can start the exterior in-depth tour from front to back. The 3 separate front intakes for the radiators and intercoolers remain at the front, but have now been squared off centrally and laterally. The side front intakes now come with active aero fins that can change position depending on the drive mode selected to provide varying front downforce. The central intake is now more open, comes without central fins, and we find the front park assist camera above. Moving up, we find the optional Dynamic Lighting System Plus with LED main beams with matrix function and LED daytime running lights. These also come with high beam assist and cornering functions. The previously smooth bonnet now comes with dynamic lines on either side, which is reminiscent of the 911s of the past. It is also now longer and far more angular at the front. Moving around, the petrol fuel tank is still found to the right. A light depress can release the cap thanks to its spring action. The tank has a max capacity of 67 litres, with the car returning a combined MPG of 27.5. Moving back, we find this large, squared-off windscreen with 2 wipers below. The smooth roof above here comes with a standard finish, but it can also come with a sunroof and in carbon fibre. We can now move to the lateral aspect of the 992. This rear quarter panel is made from one single piece of aluminium, which was quite a manufacturing achievement. The smooth side skirts below still come with their dynamic top line. Moving up, the electrically adjustable wing mirrors behind are slimmer and slightly more angular than before. These come with the optional auto dimming feature and side cameras for the park assist system. Moving back, the door handles are now integrated into the body for better lateral aerodynamics and pop out when the car is unlocked. Moving to the rear window is presented with the optional privacy glass. The rear engine cover is now also integrated into the overall form of the rear window, instead of presented separately. The elongated top brake light strip has also been removed and replaced by the central light between the vents. The rear wing has now been extended out significantly, with the edges now joining the sides of the engine bay cover instead of panel gaps as in the 991. This size increase is to compensate for the active air at the front and provide better overall downforce. As before, it is adjustable, both manually and automatically, and has several different positions for different driving modes, speeds or road conditions. When raised, the wing blocks out the fixed central brake light, so Porsche have added this LED strip in its place while the wing is up. The main brake light strip below is now an unbroken LED strip that runs around the rear of the car. The side complexes have a similar layout to the 991, but now come with indicators centrally and reversing lights with their feathered internal design below. As before, the complexes still come with their 3D design. The Porsche text below is now built into the rear of the car, and the model designation text is now far more sharp than before. This of course can be deleted if required. Below, we find a more continuous black bumper that wraps around the car. Above the number plate, we find the reversing camera for the park assist system that also comes with front and rear parking sensors, as well as the cameras we've already seen. The lateral intakes are now integrated and come with a thinner reflector. They help to send cooling air into the engine bay and exhaust system. Following the form of the 991 GT2 RS, the exhaust exits now have a wider diameter and now higher and ovular. This car comes with the optional valve-controlled sports exhaust. Due to the EU regulation particulate filter, the sound of the exhaust might be affected, but nevertheless, let's hear how the 992 sounds, first in Comfort and then in Sport Plus. Now we've finished the exterior tour, we can move inside. The 992 key follows the general 911 form, but is much slimmer than the previous key. It features buttons to lock, unlock, and to open the boot. As seen before, when the car is unlocked, the handles move out. Despite being slim, they are easy to locate and the doors pull out easily. The interior of the 992 follows the general layout of the 991, however, it's noticeably updated while staying true to some of Porsche's key motorsport-inspired aesthetics. The interior here is finished in black leather with contrast stitching, Sportex square leather seats in black with crayon stitching, and aluminium with optional matte carbon inlays. We can now start the interior in-depth tour with the doors. The top panel is now more squared off, and holds this form as we move along it. The new aluminium and optional matte carbon inlay below also holds its form as we move along to the new door release, seat memory and interior lock controls. The new central panel below is outlined by contrast stitching, and as we move along the leather upholstered armrest, we come to the mirror and window controls, and the now independent door handle that's no longer integrated with these controls. At the bottom of the door, we find this extended storage area and this Bose speaker for the optional 570 watt 12 speaker system. A Burmeister system is also available. Despite being quite a low car, ingress and egress is a straightforward process, as this is meant to be a very accessible sports car. As we move along the sill, we find the standard brushed aluminium kick plates, emblazoned with 911 Carrera 4S. To the left, we find the controls of the engine bay cover and front boot lid. Then moving up, we come to the new fixed ignition controls, buttons for the exterior lights, and first manually adjustable air vent. Moving left, we find the optional GT Sport steering wheel. This comes with a 12 o'clock marker, deeper thumb indentations at the 9 and 3 positions, and darker metal finish, in comparison to the standard wheel. To the left, we find controls for voice controls, volume, skip track, and a configurable button. The horn centrally, cool, trip, switch screen, and exit buttons to the right, and the new drive mode selector below. The 992 now comes with keyless go as well as keyless entry, so as long as the key is in the car, the new fixed ignition control can be turned to the right to turn the car on. Before we move to the updated instrument cluster ahead, we can take note of the new thicker and squared off gear shifters for the 8-speed PDK gearbox. Looking ahead, the instrument cluster has been completely redesigned and now comes with 2 digital displays, either side of an analog rev gauge with digital speedo below. The screen to the left can display time and exterior temperature, digital speedo with speed limit warning, and navigation with mileage below. To the right, temperatures and oil and turbo pressure, trip display, full Google Map navigation display, sport chrono timer, G-force meter, wheel information, tyre information, and drive mode display. As previously mentioned, the button to the right can be used to switch between these screens. The new wet driving mode can be used autonomously by the car to analyse the road conditions and then adapt aero, traction, power and damping accordingly via sensors in the front arches. We also have normal, sport, sport plus and individual that the driver can configure themselves, with these settings becoming more track focused. Looking up, we find the typically flat dash, with venting and a speaker to the right. Venting for the window ahead and either side of the new Sport Chrono stopwatch, and further venting and speaker to the left. The Sport Chrono Timer now comes with a more crisp and simple design, with a digital clock below, replacing the analog clock face of the 991. Moving down, there's a new extended aluminium and carbon panel that creates a small shelf between the dash front and the occupants. Above this, we find the new 10.9-inch screen for the Porsche communication management system. The new home screen layout is broken into 9 different sections, with menu options running down to the right-hand side. The very responsive touchscreen can be utilised first for the car's navigation system, that can be manipulated with pinch and spread movements. There are also destination and favourites tabs. Moving down, we come to media, where we find controls for the car's full AM, FM and DAB digital radio, with station icons, lists and playback function for connected devices. Phone is next, where we can access the car's stored contacts, make calls and messages. After this, we come to car, where the user can set up the car depending on their preferences and the external conditions. We have the drive mode selected to the right for wet, normal, sport, sport plus and individual as seen before. When moving through these modes, we can take note of the changes to the graphic to the left. Using the touch controls below, it's also possible to open or close the valves on the optional sports exhaust and raise or lower the rear wing. Moving down to control, the user can adjust the car's ambient lighting brightness. Then go into vehicle, where a variety of options and settings can be accessed. In displays, the user can access and adjust settings for the instrument cluster and main screen. The usual time and date, language and general configuration options can be found in settings, with a digital copy of the owner's handbook last. Next we come to the trip, with individual screens for personal trip, trip since journey start, trip since refueling, the total trip, here showing an average real-world MPG of 24.2, and finally trip to destination. The Sport Chrono Timer display comes last. In the next screen, the user can adjust climate and ventilation controls. The Apps menu offers the user a large variety of pre-installed apps that can be used for real-world functions, such as for parking, hotels, fuel stations, restaurants, and even a high-definition weather forecast. The screen for assistance systems comes next. Porsche Active Safe alerts the driver when the car feels it is approaching objects ahead too quickly. Lane assistance can also be found here if spec'd. The penultimate screen offers a large amount of options for sound design, including manual sound localization, treble and bass adjustment, to make adjustments to the optional Bose sound system, and finally volume adjustments to navigation, parking alerts and warning tones, and in set, adjustments for the car's systems, driver profile, vehicle settings, assistance systems and displays. The PCM screen can also be used to view the car's park assist cameras when put into reverse. It comes with guidance lines, parking, panoramic and side views. The new shelf below the screen separates it from the controls below. As we move down the central column, we first find this new button array for the optional vehicle lift, configurable button, hazard lights, traction control, and the optional Porsche dynamic chassis control for active anti-roll and increased stability. The air vents here now come under the screen and these buttons, as opposed to above in the 991, and moving down, we find the redesigned central column. At the top, we still find the aircon and ventilation controls, but now with a mix of physical and touch controls for front and rear demist, volume and skip track, passenger zone temperature control, fan speed, driver's zone temperature control, recirculation, auto, and control for the PCM above. Centrally, we find the significantly smaller drive mode selector for the car's standard 8-speed automatic PDK transmission. Currently, this is the only transmission option available. Controls for park hold and manual can be found behind. Moving back, a small open storage area can be found behind the 911 engraving and the front 3-stage seat heating controls. At the end of the central column, we find a single open cup holder in the same place as before, with the parking brake control last. Looking laterally, we find these leather padded areas, presumably to enhance driver and passenger comfort over long journeys, in addition to creating a more luxurious aesthetic. Looking back, the long leather upholstered dual armrest remains. The lid can be opened by depressing the button to the side. Inside we find SIM, SD and 2 USB inputs, with a long rectangular storage area with an area to dock your device. Once finished with, the lid can be easily fixed back into position. On either side of this, we find the optional Adaptive Sports Seats Plus. These are 18-way electrically adjustable and come with the memory package. The optional headrest crests have also been selected here, and the seat belts have been finished in the optional racing yellow. All movement controls can be found to the side. To move into the rear, we need to pull the leather pull found behind the outside shoulder of the front seats, and then pull the seat forward. Even though there are formed rear seats with seatbelts, the 911 retains its 2+2 format with limited space in the rear. There are additional speakers in the rear for a surround sound experience, and quite a bit of storage space on the rear shelf. And looking ahead, coat hooks on the rear of the front seats. Once finished in the rear, the front seats can be easily moved back into position. Now moving to the car's remaining storage capacity, the front glove compartment can be locked, easily opened and closed, and offers quite a bit of capacity. Below this, we find the optional fire extinguisher. To open the front boot, we first need to unlatch the bonnet by depressing the front button found on the driver's sill. After pushing a small catch to the left, the bonnet can be raised up and self-supported on 2 struts. The 992 has a capacity of 132 litres of storage in the front. And taking a closer look, we find the medkit to the indentation to the left, warning triangle centrally, and to the right, an access panel into the wheel repair equipment. This panel can be easily removed and fixated. Once finished with, the bonnet can be brought back down and fixed with a firm depress. Now moving inside to view the car's final few features, the large leather upholstered sun visors can be pulled down to reveal illuminated vanity mirrors. Centrally, there's a new button array with microphones for the car's hands-free system and reading light buttons on either side, and SOS calls to the left. Below, we find the auto-dimming rearview mirror. So that concludes my in-depth exterior and interior tour and exhaust video of this 2019 Porsche 992-911 Carrera 4S. Thanks again to Porsche GB and Porsche Centre Reading. Their contact details can be found in the description of the video. Please subscribe for the latest content, and until next time, thanks for watching.